Oh. Hey, Kunal,
It,
is that you?
yeah, Dave. Hey, it sounds like
Hey.
you're here.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow, this sounds so real.
Yeah, it's like we're right next to each other.
I know, right?
Oh my god.
Wow. I like what you did with your hair.
Yeah, I swapped it out. My digital avatar. It looks great. No bad hair days.
I'll have to get some of that.
Yeah,
Oh, man. So, where are you right now?
I'm at the Orlando Game Space.
I'm at the Orlando Game Space.
You are?
Yeah.
Where at?
I'm over by the window by Lake Eola.
Me too.
What?
Oh, hold on one second. Let me put on my AR glasses.
Oh, that's smart. I should probably put in my contacts.
Oh, AR
Hey.
contacts.
My AR contacts. Is that a thing?
It's gonna be a thing. Yeah, I
like
think
it.
eventually, whenever I get like AR LASIK, that's really the pinnacle.
I love that. Who do you think will come up with it first? Facebook or Apple?
I'm gonna go with Apple. I've all of a sudden this past summer become a Apple fanboy, by force.
Does that mean you're not on Facebook anymore?
No, I'm still on Facebook because I'm getting old.
Yeah.
So, hold on one second. I gotta let me take off my Apple AirPods Pro.
Nice.
Yeah, I figured it was time.
What?
You know.
What? Wait.
It was time for
Well, I've got
this interview.
Yeah. Which, speaking of which, I have questions.
I don't see a four in your contacts. Who would you like to FaceTime with?
No one. Well, let me take that back about the whole fanboy thing, because I'm not a fanboy of anything. I had Android for basically my entire smartphone life. So I was always Android up until this past summer.
What caused the switch?
My wife. So I've been married 3 years now, and I was just kind of joking with my wife, like, we're a real family now. Like we got married 3 years ago. We got like a baby now. But now when I switched over to Apple, like a Apple smartphone, and got the Apple Watch and got these AirPods Pro, and then have this, iPad Pro and everything, it's like now we're a real family. Because like now we can like iMessage back and forth.
Yeah.
My in-laws have iPhones, so it's easier to FaceTime. And they can easily FaceTime with our daughter, and it's just easier.
I feel like the iMessage app is the one thing that's probably got the strongest hold on me.
Yeah.
That and design. Apple's just really good at design.
Yeah.
But that's the one thing that when I text back and forth with my friends who don't have Apple,
Yeah.
there's a lot of missing pieces to that, and I just wish it was all the same, especially the little interactive pieces to how you can, heart a text or, put exclamation points.
Yeah.
Whereas otherwise it sends it as a text
Yeah.
to an Android person,
Yeah.
like it says they liked it rather than just showing that they liked
Right.
it. I don't know. But I've been using Apple for, since 2001.
Yeah.
And I haven't looked back, and it's always been weird to go to a PC if I had to work on one or something like that. I
Yeah.
had a job. But that's not why we're here. We're here to talk about, Apple. We are here to talk about Apple. But there's a little conflict going on with Facebook and Apple.
Yes.
And I can't tell if one is a bully and the other is not, or if they're both just bullies, and should we care? So why don't you share with me your thoughts on kind of what's happening with Facebook and Apple right now?
Yeah. So, I guess this is where it pays off to be a little bit older now. Like, I started my life, my adult life with kind of both of them. I in the early 2000s, the iPod was coming out, and that was what everybody wanted. It's like if you didn't have an iPod, you just had some cheap knockoff, or you had you've got a Creative Rio, or you've got a whatever. Like, you don't have an iPod. It became kind of like a design and fashion and like status icon. And so, you know, especially like being in college and just being around a lot of like young people, it was like you had to have that. And then it was around that same time that Facebook started coming out. And I mean, we just used it for the basics of like, here's my profile picture, and like, here's my status, and like, I can poke people. I can poke this girl that I kind of have a crush on, and I don't know, maybe we might have some interaction. And like, it was like the emergence of like the internet in a way. The true, like what we kind of think of as the internet, it was just kind of happening.
The social interactivity of the internet.
Yeah. So you know, what's happening is that these two giants that have grown up over the past like 20 years, so to speak, I guess, like these two big giants that have grown up are now in a place where they are really heading towards a collision course. You know, I don't know, like it's not even a David versus Goliath situation. It's just like
two Goliaths.
It's two Goliaths, you know, heading towards each other, and they both have like their unique, you know, fighting abilities. I don't know, it became a fighting analogy, but like, you know.
But this is interesting because the way you describe it, it's they're two Goliaths, and really, we're the David.
Yeah.
Technically, I am David, but
yeah, yeah.
But we're the David.
Yeah.
And it's become about the two Goliaths.
Yeah.
And what's going on with them, and this comes down to privacy, right?
Yeah. I think it just boils down to that, and really what we as individuals hold most important. Because, you know, in both cases, they have a lot of information on people. Like what we like, what we don't like, the colors that we like, the things we find enjoyment in, what we're willing to spend money on. They have a ton of information, more information than we even realize that they have on us. And you see it happening today where, you know, on Netflix, The Social Dilemma came out, and that kind of like opened some people's eyes into like how much, you know, social media in general kind of affects us, and Facebook had a big part in that. And then, I mean, my laptop is a MacBook. I have this Apple Watch. I have AirPods Pro. Maybe I have AR glasses right now. Who knows? I don't know. Maybe I you know, I have some. It's a case of my entire like digital life is interfacing through Apple. Like I'm accessing all my applications, the internet, the web pages, my work through this Apple device. I'm checking my notifications. I'm sending a text response on my phone, on my watch.
So Apple knows pretty much where you are, what you're doing, what you're talking about.
Yeah.
I think we can all just admit that they do listen to us, even though I think for the longest time Facebook denied that. That they were listening to us. But we know that to be true, whether they admit it or not.
Yeah.
Things pop up in advertisements that we just talked about that are so random that there's only one way they could have known.
Right.
But here they are, these two Goliaths. What's their motivation with this? Apple's always been the one to tout their privacy.
Yeah.
But they're also data focused. So what's the motivation between these two?
So, you know, I think it's a case of, they are two big giants, and they've had two different turfs. And what's happening is like they've expanded so much that now the turf that they're going to go after is going to be one. Just they want to take over that piece of land. And Apple has been touting privacy as like what their advantage is, because they've had the luxury to do so, because they control the hardware. You know, I have to buy a physical laptop. I have to buy a physical iPhone. I have to buy a physical Apple Watch. When they control the hardware, they can control it all, including the privacy. So they can say that, hey, we don't hold personal identifiable information we might know your activities in terms of like what you're doing, but hey, we're not going to just say that Dave or Kunal is doing this specifically, but they're able to gather all that data without doing it in a personally identifiable or creepy way or whatever, because they control it all from they control the pipes in a way. And Facebook has never had that luxury. If you break it down, like, what is Facebook? Well, Facebook is a website, and you can only access that website through a browser that they don't make. You can access it through a phone, which they don't own or made. They never owned the laptop. They don't own anything. They're an app.
But they do.
They own that now. It's the first hardware that they've created. And it's a case of like, whether they admit it or not, they were jealous all these years of like, oh man, like, look at Apple controlling everything on their phone, all the apps that are there, and even Google with Android. They're like, oh, they're able to put Chrome on that app. They were able to put Gmail on that app. They were able to control everything. When you own that hardware, you can control that first-time user experience. And so for the first time, Facebook has a piece of hardware with Oculus Quest, and they're not going back. Now they're going to start making hardware themselves, because for this 3D world, if they don't know the hardware, they saw the difficulty it's created for them in holding their ground against a giant like Apple or even Google.
So how are they going to be different?
So I think that's what they're trying to figure out right now. Because for so long, all of us only know our lives on Apple or our lives on Android. And even then, it's like Google doesn't make all the hardware. Like Samsung makes it, or HTC or OnePlus or whoever. And they're all just licensing Android, and Google's kind of in control of that. So that's kind of a weird situation. But nonetheless, like, they now see that, whoa, when we control this hardware, we can control what that experience is like. So I think right now they're out there experimenting. They're trying to figure out what life in 3D is going to be like, whether it's in virtual reality, where like, we put that on, we're in just some other universe, we're in some other place doing something else, or whether that's augmented reality, where we're just, here in real life and we see holograms. They're figuring that stuff out now. And I heard a insane stat, and I'm sure, like, they all say like stats, could be lies or whatever, but like, I mean, if it's even somewhat remotely true to say that 20% of their entire company is working on AR and VR, XR, that they're working on, XR with 20% of their staff. That means like over 10,000 people in Facebook are working on virtual and augmented and mixed reality, all the R's. And they had news of like, hey, we're reorganizing, we're creating Facebook Reality Labs, that are research and development, portion of the company. It's a big issue for them, because if they do this right, they can be the Apple.
Now they have a different model though. Apple stays private. They have their data, obviously, that they can use for themselves. Facebook is built on you giving away your data. What's the saying? That if you don't know how a company makes money and it's free for you, then you're the product.
Yeah.
So I don't think that that's a mystery, but the question is, if Apple positions themselves, and I think that's coming up here soon, if they position themselves to say, look, you're going to have to agree to allow Facebook to have all this information and to share your information with all these other people. That's on the surface, when it's brought up in front of you, it feels like it's okay if it's hidden. Like people are like, oh, I'm just okay. I'm okay. Everyone can know everything. I know they know everything, but you just kind of live with it. But when you're asked, hey, can I have all of your information, right? All your private stuff. It's a little different. And that's where Facebook and Apple are coming to a head now.
They're not friends anymore. They're not frenemies. They are most definitely like, yeah, not doing so hot right now. There's, they have active, obviously, like whenever you're that big, you have active court battles all the time. But like, I mean, like, Facebook is putting out, buying entire full page ads in the New York Times and talking about Apple, and even not directly, but like they're talking about Apple, they're talking about themselves in terms of privacy. Like they know that their entire business model is at risk because they're making money on targeted ads, and they need user information to do this. And then Apple kind of like tightening the pipes. They're limiting, the data that Facebook has access to, which decreases the value of their targeted ads, which means they're basically taking away Facebook's bread and butter, which is not good for shareholders, which is not good for Mark Zuckerberg, which is not good for like the company. It's not good, so they're not happy, and they know that they might need to I guess make things go a lot faster in terms of controlling the hardware.
So here we are on the playground. We've got two bullies. Does either one of them remotely hold a higher moral ground than the other?
I think it depends on who you're going to ask. There are some people out there who I would say are on the side of Facebook. There's people out there because they're using Messenger, they're using WhatsApp, they're using it, for remember 1 year ago, remember 3 years ago, and there's like some of these good memories and things that come back. There are good things that Facebook does, absolutely. And the thing is, it's not just Facebook, it's Instagram, it's WhatsApp, it's all these family of apps that they've like bought.
It's Portal.
It's Portal, right? Like, hey, talk to your grandma, and
we just got a Portal.
Yeah.
I had thought about it, had a really hard time buying into it, knowing that they were going to be listening, And I kept going back and forth, and I saw my sister during the holidays, and she had all these people video conferenced in on her living room TV, and they had set up the dinner table right in front of the TV, and so did everyone else. And I said, "Is that the Portal?" It is.
Yeah.
Do you like it? She said, "I love it."
Yeah.
So we got one.
I got one too. It's so hard when like the tech is just so good. When they execute something so well, I think people are very forgiving, unwilling to be forgiving, but forgiving because it's human nature. Like when it's so good, when it makes your life so convenient and it's just so smooth, you forget really fast. You might say, I got problems with this, but in the end, like when it's so convenient, we got the Portal and we're doing like FaceTime with the grandparents and things like that. But when Portal comes on, they're as big as the TV. And now all of a sudden, like, we didn't have to hold up, the phone or the tablet to like have calls with grandma and grandpa, and both sets, by the way, like that we can just turn on the TV. And then they got a Portal and we got a Portal, and then it's just like, our 2-year-old can just look at the TV and they see the whole living room and it zooms in when she runs around and stuff like that. They did a really good job. But also, like, they know they don't have the best name going on right now. Like, people have, their reputation precedes them. And it's a case of like, even when we just brought a Portal, it's like, man, it's so good. But like the fact that it's Facebook makes everybody like,
you're paying for it, and you're paying for it twice. You're paying for it to buy it, and then you're paying for it, with your information. This is a crazy time. It seems like on one side, because I stopped being an Apple fanboy. Because people would argue with me, and I'm going, wait a minute, they're not paying me. Matter of fact, I'm paying a lot of money to buy their products. I'm not going to sit here and get paid to defend them too, right? But I love their products. The famous words I think of most people would say, they just work. When the AirPods came out, how they just connected with the phone was ridiculous.
Oh my God, yeah.
And
No thinking involved.
it was, yeah, exactly. And it was convenient, and you didn't have those tangled wires all the time. But we love the devices because they work and they're beautiful. But we love Facebook because we can talk to grandma, we can talk to our friends, we can keep up to date, you know. So we have two companies, two Goliaths that have things that cost us,
Yeah.
that we love. They're different. Apple's now, you know, coming into the Oculus, and who knows where else the Portal. Who knows where else they want to go with it. But one thing is clear: the XR experience that Facebook has going with the Oculus, Apple's not going to ignore that. They came out a year or two ago and showed how you can take your iPod or your iPad and like hover around this, you know, it was a Lego set. It was
Yeah.
something.
Yeah.
And watch it come to life. And there's apps on there that I play with, you know, just for fun to see like how people are doing it. So you have XR now entering into the realm of.
Yeah.
You talked, you know, in the last video you talked about Microsoft and their play in XR
Yeah.
as well. And so with this one, we have two Goliaths that are at the top of the hill on the playground, you know.
Yeah.
And I feel like we're all just spectators.
We're just spectators.
And so what do you feel from our standpoint, from the consumer standpoint, what do you think the consumers are thinking about what's going on with XR?
Well, most definitely, like, we're all kind of like spectators, and we might all have like our personal thoughts on where things are going. I think in some cases, the people are clueless. Like a lot of us, like, it's not in our daily lives yet, you know. I think that there's a huge glut of people that know XR is a thing. Maybe they play with it a little bit, and there's another group of people that are like, I don't even know what it is.
So let's share this right now.
Yeah.
What is XR?
So XR is just kind of this all-encompassing term at the moment, because we've all heard of VR, where you have this full headset. You don't see anything else around you. You see only what it shows you. You're basically transported to another place, a 3D place. And it could be a volcano, it could be Mars, it could be Candyland, it could be another city, it could be whatever. And it's fully interactive. And there's some cases where there's even cameras for pass-through, so you can kind of mix things out there in the real world and bring it into you know, the virtual world. And sometimes you can see your hands as well, so it creates virtual versions of your real life hands. That's VR, virtual reality. Then augmented reality is where right now the easiest use case is our phone or our tablets or something, where the camera is a pass-through, so it shows the real world that we can see, and it superimposes a 3D model of some kind of hologram. Because it has sensors, and the latest iPhones have LiDAR, which is like think of it as a 3D, you know, sensor that knows where the ground is, where the wall is, where the ceiling is, there's a coffee table here. So it knows to create the physical world around us virtually, and it can place these virtual elements around. And that's really useful for, like, fun Lego things like you saw. But I mean, even workforce training, like, hey, you know, you need to do some task at work, and it just knows to place a piece of information in the right place. So there's going to be a lot of cool use cases for that, both business and just personal. So these technologies are coming out. Apple knows, you know, hey, every single iPhone user out there now has AR, you know, has AR capabilities. People out there are buying the Oculus Quest for fun reasons. A lot of it is games, a lot of it is cool experiences. They're selling a ton of those Quests. Obviously not as many as these iPhones, but they're trying to move like further and further ahead. So XR is basically, man, there's too many R's. It's like AR, VR. Then Microsoft said something, used a term called mixed reality, where it's a little bit more interactive, augmented reality. In the end, I think we just call it XR. And in the end, I think when all the hardware the dust settles in terms of the hardware platforms that are getting made, like, so 4, 5, 6 generations in, I think they'll all become one and the same. I think they'll all look like glasses, and when we want to like transport to a totally different world, full vision is taken over. And when we want to be in the real world, I just see you and me. We're here in the sofa. So I think XR will just eventually be one device. But for right now, AR is our phones, VR is the Oculus Quest.
So XR is the overall umbrella of merging the digital with the real
Yeah,
in all
Yeah.
in all circumstances.
yeah.
Okay. What do businesses have to think about Apple and Facebook? I heard a stat that let's say that Apple succeeds and they're going to go ahead and launch their iOS where people have to admit that, or have to agree to the idea of giving up their data. That there are more and more businesses, I think a 44% increase in businesses buying social advertising, and that this could cause a 60% loss in not so much ad spend, but just results from that.
Yeah.
Like where are the business, from a business standpoint,
Yeah.
you know, how are they viewing this whole situation take place?
So I think this comes to like something, you know, I've talked about in the past, like with anybody who'd listen, is that there are oh shit moments in life, in the business world, and it happens whenever there's a platform shift. So, you know, when we went from the 90s, you know, where there were the Yellow Pages and you had to buy your Yellow Pages ad, and it's like, oh, I spent a little bit more for a color ad, and I spent a little bit more for a full page ad, and like maybe your phone would start ringing more, and then you move to websites. There are people who are like, what the hell's a website? That's stupid. And there's other people like, I should probably have a website. And some people went, oh shit, you know, and what's this website thing? What's this internet thing? And they died off, like the dinosaurs when they saw the asteroid. There's other people who are like, you know, were able to adapt, and they, you know, they had a website, and then their business continued. And then moving further on, like, you know, same thing happened with like smartphones, having mobile responsive websites and apps, and things like that, having, you know, doing social media as well. There's some people who are like, that's stupid, I don't know if I need to do that. And there's other people who actually did do that, and their businesses thrived. So whenever these platform shifts happen, where you go from the old way to the new way, some businesses die and some businesses thrive. And it really comes down to who feels like being innovative and who feels like I'm doing good right now. And it's a lesson that, I don't know, not everybody learns in time. And, you know, not a lot of people pay attention to history either. So what happens is these platform shifts happen, and then history repeats itself, and you know, what's happening now is this platform shift where we're moving from just this life inside of a rectangle to something where the entire field of view, our entire vision, everything is a computer. Everything is a screen. It's not just a rectangle anymore. I could go to the grocery store and I can be comparing two loaves of bread, and I could actually see like the difference between which one's organic and which one has, you know, is better for me health-wise. It's everywhere. It's gonna be 3D. And before I buy something, I'm gonna see it in 3D on my coffee table before I know I actually want to order it.
So I remember when video conferencing started really taking off with Skype and all that.
Yeah.
It was the best way to bridge the gap between, instead of talking on the phone or texting, you could now see facial expressions. So there was that.
Yeah.
There was that movement towards that. But I'm seeing now just XR, and you use the word experience, and I think that is so strong with XR, virtual reality. And I saw that at Christmas time, where kids couldn't get their PlayStations, they couldn't get their Xboxes because they were sold out everywhere. And when they came to my house and they played the Oculus,
Yeah.
the parents immediately, because they saw their kids having so much fun with it, and then they tried it and they loved it.
Yeah.
They said, "How much is this thing?" I said,
Yeah.
"It's $300."
$300.
And they went, "What?"
Yeah.
like take my money now, right?
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
they couldn't believe, because the price point of the PlayStation. It's like, I remember when graphics was the best thing that came out.
Yeah.
But the graphics are incredible right now.
Yeah.
Right? It's not about the graphics, it's about the experience.
Yes.
And what you guys are doing with Brand XR and the clients that you're working with, when you showed me that, was it the molecular structure with Wayne State University?
Yeah, yeah.
As a kid growing up, had I had access to that in my education, that would have bridged the gap between textbook learning and actual physical on the job kind of like learning,
Yeah.
right? But it's not really physical.
Yeah.
It's virtual, but it blended the virtual with the whole XR, what you talked about.
Yeah.
It blended that virtual with the real, and I can just see when people are shopping for products online I think IKEA even offers it, but you guys being able to be the catalyst for that and allow companies that, we're back at that, do you want a website kind of situation,
Yeah.
know? And then it was, do you want an app,
Yeah.
But now it's, do you want to leverage XR and even further, bridge the gap between the consumer and what you're providing?
Yeah.
You can bring it to life in their world
Mm-hmm.
and allow them to make a decision.
Yeah. I think that this is the thing for a lot of businesses and organizations to like really start thinking about now, is that 3D, XR experiences, this is just the way that people will buy, sell, learn, understand things moving in the future. And there's elements of this just from our human nature of when we were in school. Some people are visual learners, some people like listening to things, some people maybe like looking at pictures or looking at or reading. XR gives the ability to kind of wrap all of that into one, anytime you want, any place that you are. And so people need to learn that, okay, before I just had to have a static image and I talked on the phone and maybe I can make a sale, or maybe they came to my shop and they saw something in person. And then eventually, I need to sell online because not everybody can come to me when I'm open or whatever. So then they started putting pictures online and videos online. That rose to e-commerce, and Amazon grew, and then Shopify also became a thing, and that grew and created things. And then now we're moving into a place where, okay, creating a website is really easy now, but creating 3D is not. But that's what consumers will expect. The regular people every day are just going to expect this. And if you have a company or a shop or whatever that can't produce that, but your competitor can, guess where I'm going? Guess where everybody else is going? They're going to go to that instead of you. And so we, myself and my co-founder, we come from entrepreneurial backgrounds. Our families have run shops, like convenience stores and gas stations and grocery stores, and just we come from an entrepreneurial background, so we see it and we know that oh shit moment is going to come. And if we're going to do anything to prevent that, then I think we'll make a huge difference in the world, because all these companies and organizations need to make that shift, because we know that consumers are unforgiving, and they're going to go wherever life is made easier. And so it's a case of, with Apple, what they're doing, and what Facebook and what they're doing, they're trying to bring those technologies to the masses and try to make it super simple and easy to understand and use. And once that happens, well, hopefully the rest of the business world has also learned how to create content for that platform, and if they've done that, then consumers will have those expectations, and they'll start using that.
So chances are Apple knows what Facebook's doing. Let's just assume they know what they're doing.
Yeah.
And they see it coming.
Yeah.
Which would be why now is a good time to try to put a stop to that. The momentum might be too strong. But the one thing I'm looking at going, okay, Apple's got billions of devices in people's hands.
Yeah.
They own the pipes.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's the oil pipelines. Whoever owns the railroad, whoever owns this, right?
Yeah,
this is
yeah.
the new railroad.
Exactly.
And so if all their devices, if there's billions of devices, if they control that market, the one thing that has just been popping up in my head is the price point.
Yeah.
Facebook has made it extremely affordable to put virtual reality into your hands.
Totally.
And to experience it. The games are cheap.
Yeah.
The quality is great. It's going to be always evolving. Apple is clearly they understand that XR is a major part of the next big move in technology.
Yeah.
And so we don't know what they're coming up with yet. They've
Right.
teased with Apple Glass how many times, and we
Yeah.
still haven't seen anything, right?
Right.
But their price point's not going to be that of Facebook.
No, not at all.
That's not their MO.
No, no, that's not. Yeah,
That's they're all about design, simplicity, and it just works. But you pay for that design.
Mm-hmm.
Johnny Ive has has made me. I mean, but I love it. I love the design. I love the way it makes me feel. Don't get me wrong, but if you can get the same exact experience with whatever Facebook continues to come up with,
yeah,
and Apple, if more people are prone to buy the Apple products because of the price point, then they're the ones building the railroads,
yeah,
and Apple's afraid of that.
yeah, absolutely. You just have to look at the signs that are out there in the marketplace on what's happening. Most definitely, Apple has always had a premium product. You paid a lot of money, and it was on the upper tier of things, of products. So when their MP3 player, the iPod, came out, it was not the cheapest MP3 player. It didn't have the most storage capacity. It wasn't necessarily even the smallest or the thinnest, but it definitely seemed like it was the coolest, and it was very expensive, and it was a status symbol, right? So like, if you had one, then somebody knew, like, you paid for that, like, hopefully you paid for that, but like, if you paid for that. And then when the iPhone came out, it's like $600, $650, right? And then you had to pay for like your phone plan. I mean, Steve Ballmer, the CEO of Microsoft at the time, like, famous last words, was like, nobody's gonna spend $650, for a phone like that, like, and I guess he didn't see the vision, but that's Microsoft's mistake now. But nonetheless, it was at the top of the price points for smartphones, and my MacBook Pro, I mean, this thing is freaking expensive, and so and I know I made the switch to the iPhone and the Apple Watch and the AirPods Pro. I know how expensive this shit is, but like it's not affordable to most people. And the thing is, if you're going to try and make a movement, if you're going to try to, grab new land, then you've got to go where the other person isn't. And Facebook knows that, hey, we can't charge $600 for our VR headset. They tried that at the very start with their first generation Oculus Rift, and you still need to tether it to like a $2,000 PC. That was good just to get some developers involved and some excitement. But when this Quest came out, the Oculus Quest, untethered, and it's like $300, now it's basically anybody can go and get it. I mean, the same price as, like, it's less than a PS5, it's less than an Xbox, it's about the same price as a Nintendo, and it's affordable, and people are getting it. And you know what? If that is the first taste of VR that they have, then that's what they're going to stick with. I have an uncle who went into the mall, like, back when malls were a very popular thing.
Wait, they're not popular?
Not popular, but he went in a one particular door, like, for the first time that he went to this mall, and that is the door he always goes in. Doesn't matter which side of the mall he needs to go to, he goes in through that same entrance every single time.
I did the same thing.
Right? And it's just somehow, like, we established
That's hilarious.
that was the doorway to the mall, and I'm always going to park here, and I'm always going to go through there. And it's one of those things that, like, stuck with me, that okay, human nature is like, you go with what's familiar. And if the Oculus Quest is your first taste of VR, and you like that interface, even if you don't like the interface, but like that's how you got accustomed to things,
that's where your comfort level is.
you're going to be stuck there. And then same deal, like, think about the iPhone. I'm an iPhone person, I'm an Android person, and it's really hard to switch. Both are very easy if you're coming into it fresh, but if you have to switch, you feel like something's different, something's not right, something's off. Same thing with PC and Mac. Like, if you've been using a PC for a long time, you're like, oh my god, this is so difficult. Or like, you go to a Mac, you're accustomed to that, and you go to Windows, oh my god, how do people even use this? So they're forging ground right now, and if they can grab the people that aren't willing to spend like thousands, then Facebook can have those people, and they can have them for life. So that could be a challenge. And that Apple has to fight against. And I don't know if that's the right move or wrong move. I mean, this is like going to be Monday morning quarterbacking like 10 years from now.
Well, let's think about it this way. We entered this discussion kind of comparing the two. Who's the bully? Which one's David, which one's Goliath. We've come to the decision they're both Goliaths, and we're David.
Yeah. Yeah.
But let's just say this. Let's look at it this way. They both clearly care about the success of their brands.
Yes.
Right? They're both making decisions to fight each other for the success of their brands. Do you have an opinion of which one cares more about the consumer is there one that seems to care more about the consumer than the other?
Yeah. This is one of those things where when a company becomes big enough, they're kind of all things at once. Like, I almost want to say, like, and everybody has a different opinion, they're no longer, you want to think of it as a person, like with Apple and Steve Jobs, or you could even say Apple and Tim Cook, or Facebook and Mark Zuckerberg. They're not like one thing anymore. They're almost like three personalities. They're like three people all at once. And you can say that there's the good person, there's the bad guy, the bad person, and there's something in the middle. And that's true for both Apple and for Facebook, just in my view. When I look at Apple, they started as David, the underdog. Microsoft was the Goliath. And like they came through, they busted a path through, they had the tiny market share, they were the little company that could, they had the cool products, people wanted to use them. The iPod came out, iPhone came out, they were changing things, like the world was changing, like people really got behind Apple. And somewhere along the way, they just grew big and big and big and bigger and bigger. Like they eventually were worth more than Microsoft has ever been worth. They are the biggest company in the world today. So they're not that underdog anymore. And they want to make certain that they stay the biggest company. And when you want to stay the biggest company, you are the bully. You see this in the fight between them and Epic, and in some cases, I think they're justified. It's like their Apple iPhone, their, ecosystem. It's their everything, right? So in some ways, you could say it's justified, but nonetheless, they're just the biggest marketplace leader at the moment. And so they're going to protect that turf. But they're also not going to forget their message of like, we care about the people, we want to make things, different, we want to be there to make your lives easier. Maybe all that stuff might still be true somewhere in their heart, somewhere in some of their activities. But there's that other personality side of them, if you think of them as a person, that's like, I'm protecting my turf, nobody is going to take my spot. And so they will make the moves that will make certain that other people are blocked out. And then on top of it, in doing that activity, they're also thinking about what comes next. If I don't do certain things, then just like we supplanted Microsoft, someone will supplant us, right? There will be another company that will supplant us. So before that happens, they're trying to move a few steps ahead, which is what this whole XR related stuff is. This is why they have ARKit, being sent to developers. They're putting LiDAR on iPads and iPhones. They are trying to almost like beat themselves. Before somebody else beats us, we will beat ourselves. We'll replace ourselves. And so that's what Apple's doing. But that's what Facebook is doing too. Like what got them, to grow through all the social media, then realizing they got too big, and then realizing, oh, we should have Instagram. People think Instagram's cool. We should have WhatsApp. People, chit chat back and forth all around the world on WhatsApp. We should do that. People, don't go on social media as much. Like people should, they like sending pictures back and forth to each other, and messaging and things like that. So like, let's promote Messenger. People like want to chat, and tell stories like on TV. Let's make Portal. Like people want to see cool effects. Like so, like let's let's have all these filters. Like, they are constantly trying to, innovate and create these things because they knew that they grew so big that people kind of like looked at that and was like, all right, I don't want to be on Facebook for that reason. But then they use all these other things. And now they know that even that is like not going to be good enough. So then they're going towards XR. So you have both of these giant companies that were once like the tiny, little engine that tried to like grow and try to change things and make life better. Then they became the dominant force, and then they want to stay there, and they both want to innovate so they don't lose their positioning. But at the same time, they're going against each other, and if they make one false move, maybe they won't survive, right? And so like that's a tough thing. I just don't know who is going to win in the end. I personally just feel like Apple is probably going to like, have control of the people that love Apple today or in that ecosystem. And Facebook is going to grab the people that can't afford Apple.
Well, if tech is going to become fashion, or become fashion, tech is fashion, right?
Tech is fashion, yeah.
So if tech is fashion, my assumption is Apple wins hands down. Unless someone comes in and completely messes up their design process. If I'm going to be wearing glasses, am I going to be wearing something that Facebook made or...
Well, I mean, this is where Facebook, again, like they're trying to figure out, like, how do we, succeed in spite of like our name kind of being in the mud right now, just, with privacy and things like that. They struck a partnership with Ray-Bans, right? Ray-Bans is a brand. Ray-Bans is a brand that we've all known our entire lives. It's existed for decades, like for sunglasses. Like Men in Black had Ray-Bans, like whatever. Like, it's just existed for so long. If you see Ray-Bans, you're not going to think about Facebook, really. But if AR tech is built into that, then Facebook wins, right? They still win. So maybe Facebook doesn't need to create the brands if they partner with the brands.
Kind of like how they're partnering with Fortnite
Yeah.
to go against the giant.
Yeah.
No, this is good. I'd like to actually revisit this in a year, maybe 2 years, and kind of look at it more so. If I see you at your desk, what are you using? Because we can say all these different things, but it really comes down to where we spend our money, which ones that we feel is the best integrated into our lives. And I think that's the biggest thing is if you're dealing with XR, it's all about the integration.
Yeah.
How do you, if this is going to become a part of you, it's got to integrate seamlessly, extremely well, make your life easier.
Totally.
So I think this will be an interesting video to look back on in a year from now and go, we had no idea what we were talking about, or
yeah, it's like
here we are. So
who saw XR top hats happening? Like
write that down.
Write that down.
Write that down. No, this is awesome. And I also just realized I haven't even looked at the camera the entire time. Okay.
Hi.
Let us know what you guys think. Is Facebook going to make it happen? Is Apple going to make it happen? Is one of these guys more of a bully than the other? What do you guys think? Let us know in the comments.
Bye.
See ya.
Thanks a lot.